everyone! Today I'm going to be making Zelda's earrings from Tears of the Kingdom. For the base of them, I'm going to use these Easter eggs because they're the same shape that I need, because the actual earrings just straight up look like dragon eggs. Personally, I think it's very cool. So I take the bottom piece of the egg and thread some wire through the two holes at the bottom and twist it up. This is to make a base for the actual hanging piece of the earring, and also so I have something to hold on to as I paint it, so I don't have to paint one half of the earring, then turn it over and paint the other half. I can just paint it all at once. Speaking of painting, I first tried this iridescent white paint. As you can see, that did not work because iridescent paint and metallic paint is very see-through. So instead I went with a base coat of white. I did a couple coats of this. To set these aside to dry, I literally just taped them off the side of my desk so they weren't touching anything. It's pretty simple to set up, honestly. Then after that, I went back in with the iridescent white paint, which you can't really see on the first layer of it. But once I got about 3 layers on there, it looks like a pearl. Well, nice and pearly. Now I just have to actually make the scales. For this I'm going to use cardstock, and I made a little guide out of cardboard so that I can trace it over and over. You could also use something else, like probably a thin foam. I just went with cardstock because it's stronger than regular paper, and also it's easy to cut out and glue on. I traced the full paper of this just to see how much I would need. I ended up needing 2 of these papers, and I'll spare you from having to watch me cut them all out, because it did take a while. But then I can start gluing all the scales onto the eggs. Also, I fold them all in half because in the actual reference picture they're all folded in half. That's the other reason I chose cardstock, is because you can see the creases in them more. And for this bottom layer, I end cutting off the tip of it, and this is because it's going to lay flat better. Once I get to the second row, I start gluing them on a little bit higher, and as you can see here, I don't glue them on top of each other. I kind of glue them on 4 edges, or I don't want to say corners because the egg doesn't have corners, but I think you get it. And then I glue them all, like the mid part of it down so that it's not coming off the egg. And with the next round of scales, this isn't the next row, I layer them on top of them. This is so all the scales lay on each other nicely. I then repeat the steps for the rest of the rows going up the egg. As you can see, there are some gaps in between the eggs, or in between the scales. That's perfectly normal, and they'll just be covered up by the next row of scales. So if you're making these and you have gaps between them, don't freak out or anything, that's perfectly fine. Once I got all the scales glued on, I then use a white paint mixed with a little bit of the iridescent paint. You cannot actually tell the difference on camera or in real life. And I still put 3 layers of it on. Now that the base part is done, we can focus on the metal findings. I'm not actually going to make them out of metal though. I cut the support wire down and fold it down into a loop. And for this, I'm going to use foam clay because it's air dry and it's very lightweight, which is what you need for earrings. Now for the bottom little cap piece, I just take a little ball of clay and stick it on to get the indent. And I do have to cut some of the scales down on this egg to fit, which is, again, fine. Then set that piece aside to dry. At the same time, I'm going to make the little bottom dangly piece out of foam clay as well, just rolling it out to get the tapered edge. And also, if you want, you can also go out and find beads in the shape of this. I did try to, but I couldn't find any. Like, I checked multiple craft stores. The top piece of this is actually kind of shaped like a flower. For that, first I take the foam clay and roll it out flat, and then realize it's sticking to the paper I use as a background, so I take it off and remove the paper, but then it's absolutely glowing on my black desk, so we're gonna cut away quickly. But I make this little stencil out of the same thing I used to make, the same stencil I used to make the scales, and just flip it on each side to get the flower. Then I stick it onto the wire and shape it into the sort of rounded up shape that it is, and then I leave it on there to dry. That's all the metal pieces you'll need to make for this, and once they're all dry, you can actually get to painting. Also, the bottom of mine, like my egg, fell off, which is fine, it'll help us later anyway. I go in and start painting these brown. I actually use a lighter brown than what I'm painting with here. For the little bottom piece that I think looks like an acorn cap, I first poke a hole in it with a pin, then take this kind of bronze metal fastener and stick it through, then paint it brown. This is going to be used as both a handle and something to hang the little dangly bit off later. Once all the pieces have a base coat of brown on them, I go in with this metallic brown paint in the color Rich Espresso to actually make all the bits look like metal. I did contemplate doing this because I thought it'd make it look less cartoony like it does in the game, but I like how it came out. And also, I'm sorry about the not putting it in the frame. Also, while I was getting reference images, I didn't realize that Sonia and Minoru also wear these earrings. It is pretty cool, and also I think it's important to note that if you make these, they are all slightly different from each other. For the actual metal bits of these, I managed to find these kind of bronzy metals. I was originally going to paint them if I couldn't find any, but luckily I did. I put a jump ring in the top of the egg, and of course I used the pin for the bottom piece that you saw. And then for the rest, I'm just going to need 2 more jump rings and 2 earring hooks. We can now start assembling it all. For the bottom piece, I bend it down. I first try to use pliers, but then I just use my hands because it's easier. Then I slide it off to get an easier bend, then slip it back on. Then I just trim the rest of the wire off so I can stick it back onto the egg. To stick it back on, I do use hot glue here. You can use stronger glues, and if you're making these to sell, because I usually make earrings to sell, then I would definitely recommend a stronger glue. Then we're going to take a jump ring and attach it onto the bottom little dangly bit. Then attach that onto the loop of the bottom piece, and I use some pliers to close it. And a final step is to add the earring hook, which is literally just the same process. Then once you got that on, the earrings are all ready to go. I absolutely love how these earrings turned out. Like, they look like they'd be too big, and to some people they are, but personally I love them. If you have any other requests on what kind of jewelry I should make either from Zelda games or not, please let me know. This was really fun. And I hope you enjoyed the video. See ya!